I think I'm live. I gotta check real quick. There we go. Alright, sick. Let's start. So, this is my current list for Nissa. I have to use a placeholder because the new card is not out yet. But, yeah, so I'll just go over some of the card selections and definitely some of the cuts that I'll be making, including cards like Tiller Engine. We really just don't need that. It's too slow. Orb of Dreams. I'm going to try and remove all the stack species that I can, and then we'll see where we can get afterward. And I might add them in after. So, Amulet of Vigor is a no-go. I just really don't need it. Every time I've tried to use it, it's kind of just come up flat, and I've usually just mulliganed it away. Oh, actually, I'm using the wrong list, aren't I? That's funny. Yeah, I'm using the wrong list anyway. Let me edit that real quick. I need to cut this one, delete deck. Alright. And then I actually copied that. This one is the one I was looking for. Let's see, you gotta put it in to a different folder. Not yet, okay. Yeah, so this is the updated list, I'm sorry. And I'll just go over some of the cards and why I have them included. Invasion of Korea is just a tutor, obviously. It's incredible, so there's no reason to cut it. The backside is kind of irrelevant, we just play it for the front. Vivian, having flash on all of our creatures means that we can win on the stack, especially if we activate Nissa's ability, which, if you don't know the ability, is landfall, add a mana, and then if you do this twice in one turn, you also get to reveal it from the top of your deck until you get an elf or an elemental, put it into your hand. That basically means just tutor two cards into your hand, or tutor a card into your hand, and there's only two that it can hit in this list currently. And those are Aquarian Ranger and Ashaya, which, if you pair them together, they make infinite mana with Nissa. And that's just by looping Ashaya and Quarian's ability. Every time Aquarian Ranger enters the battlefield, Ashaya makes it a land, Nissa sees it as a land, gives you a mana, and then you can untap Nissa, tap her for mana, return Aquarian Ranger to your hand, and do that as much as you want, making infinite mana. So, like, giving that flash just means you can do it on someone else's turn, before they even draw, for instance. Pretty good. Arboreal Grazer is just a way to trigger Nissa's second ability. So, it fits right in. Birds of Paradise is one of the only dorks that we have available to us that are not elves, so it fits in. Secular Tribe Scout is another way we can trigger Nissa's ability, similar to Arboreal Grazer, but we can use it on other people's turns, and it can also go infinite without Nissa, which is critical to our strategy if we lose Ashaya somehow. Sylvan Safekeeper is just a way to protect our creatures. I don't know if it'll make the final cut. It's just a good card, so I put it in for that reason. Wirewood Symbiote is a way to protect Nissa, so we can return her to our hand if someone tries to remove her, but also it can just add a lot of mana suddenly for various ways. Collector Oof is great disruption. It's a creature, and it doesn't really hurt us too bad, so I figured I'll put it in. It might not make the final cut. I'm not sure yet. Destiny Spinner is Allosaur Shepherd, but not as an elf. We don't want too many elves because we don't want Nissa to be disrupted in any way. We want to make it so we always draw these two every game. So it's not really a downside, and the positives are definitely there. Duskwatch Recruiter is just a way to spend our mana once we have infinite mana. Lotus Cobra is Nissa, but as a Cobra. Obviously, it's great. Outland Liberator is not an elf and can blow up artifacts and enchantments. I don't really have any ways to do that outside of spells, so on a body this is fantastic. And the backside is just kind of a monster if somebody has a card like Cursed Totem out. Sacred Tribuilder. This one is 2 mana, put a land into play from your deck, which is like exactly what we want to do. So it's definitely worth the cost. Scrub Ranger is Aquarian Ranger 2. Definitely recommend it. Doesn't get found by Nissa, but if Aquarian Ranger gets killed somehow or something like that, this is a good backup. And having Flash just means we can do it at instant speed, which is great as well. Azusa is just a house in this deck. Like I can't really explain unless you see it, but being able to play lands from your graveyard with cards like Ramunap, if you have a fetch and then just a Zusa, you're gonna make a lot of mana. It's awesome. Eternal Witness, returning a card to your hand is incredible, especially on a creature. We can repeat that with effects like Team or Sabretooth, so I'm a big fan. Ramunap Excavator is just Crucible of Worlds. If you have a fetch land and you fetch, so you activate Nissa's ability twice, you get a land, and you get to use her second ability. Really good, but being able to play it again makes it even better. Like, fetches are the reason this deck is viable, and having more is always better, so definitely a powerhouse in this deck. Team Red Sabretooth lets us repeat several combos that exist. Cards like Arboreal Grazer go really well with it, along with Eternal Witness, and any of the return abilities that we have, like Wirewood, Scrib, and Crater Ranger. Just being able to repeat their effects is really strong. And then we also have Woodland Bellower that we can return to our hand and use again if we need to. Ashaya, I've already went over. It's a total powerhouse and the reason this deck is viable. Green Sun Zenith is a tutor. Like we can't have too many of those, so it's in. Sylvan Tutor, similar idea. It lets us tutor to the top with Nissa, so we know that we're going to get either specific one if we need to, and like as the deck gets more fleshed out, if we add more elves, we can make selective choices with the elves we get using cards like this, which is just another reason to include it. Finale of Devastation, it's Invasion of Ikoria, but better. Obviously it fits. I like Land Grant. If you have a hand that has, let's say, one land, you just play a land, cast Land Grant, and now you have two lands. Gets a little bit better. So, and it potentially could get cut. I'm not sure yet. It might even get stronger. I don't know. So it's still up in the air. But this is definitely one of the cards that I'm questioning, but I'm not against. Nature's Lore, it pays for itself. With Nissa, you just cast it, land enters, it gives you a mana, and then it can tap as well immediately. So it's free. 0 mana, find a land is always good. Nihilita's Intervention is just search for X lands. We want that. We have like a toolbox of different lands that we might need. So that's really helpful, especially with cards that exist like, which are not in this deck right now, but like Homeward Path or Command Beacon, which lets us put our commander into our hand if, let's say, it got removed a bunch. Sylvan Scrying, same thing. 3 Visits is Nature Lore with a different name. Great card. Eldritch Evolution is a great way to find core pieces of our combo or ways to disrupt our opponents if they're stopping us from winning. So, more tutors, always good. Natural Order is the same story. And Skyshroud Claim is Nature's Lore and 3 Visits, but it's 2 of them stapled together. It pays for itself. It's really good. Alright. Summoner's Pact. This will win you the game. Just 0 mana tutor, it wins. That's all you need to know. Autumn's Veil. It's Veil of Summer, so it lets you just stop someone from countering your stuff, gives you hexproof, and your stuff hexproof. It's always good in any green CEDH deck, just to stop people from disrupting you. It doesn't draw like this one, but we don't really need that. Like we have enough card draw, so it's not really an issue. Crop Rotation is a total powerhouse in this deck. It's our version of Periodic Ritual. It finds any land that we could want, and it just, if we could have more of this effect, we would run as many as we could. Nature's Claim is just removal for artifacts and enchantments. I like it, that's why I run it. I don't think it's necessarily great, I don't think it's bad, just kind of one of those cards that you run if you think you need it. Noxious Revival, another use for cards like Eternal Witness. If you can Noxious Revival a card, like let's say Ashaya, and then activate Nissa's second ability, you can just put it straight into your hand, which is incredible. Couldn't recommend it enough. Tail Swipe, it's an instant speed fight spell. In case someone plays a card that's really dangerous, like Blood, or Magus of the Moon, or Opposition Agent, just being able to kill that at instant speed is kind of incredible, so I couldn't talk more praise about this card. I love it. I think it's one of the best fight spells that we've ever gotten, and I think it should be played in any green deck. Tameo Safekeeping, just giving hexproof and indestructible, can be relevant at times, especially when our combo is somewhat fragile, since we only have 2 ways to use it. And again, I think that's one example of why this deck is not uh, totally finished. And I don't think I have the best list. Is just only finding two pieces. If one of them gets removed, well, now this ability is useless. So we'll see about that. But I like it. Definitely helps. Just make sure that we don't get blown out. Veil of Summer is just Autumn Veil, but draw card. Worldly Tutor, it's Sylvan Tutor, but instant speed, so it's much better. Yep, great card. Infectious Bite. This card is a fight spell similar to Tailswipe, but they don't actually fight. It just does its damage to whatever creature you're trying to remove. It also gives a poison counter, which means we can use cards like Eternal Witness and Temur Sabertooth to infinitely return Eternal Witness to our hand and then recast Infectious Bite on a creature. And if we have, like, let's say Birds of Paradise out, we can just do 0 damage to it and give all of our opponents poison counters and kill them all with poison counters. It's a way to win the game. It also just can be used as removal. Very versatile, big fan of the card. Beast Within. More removal, can also be used to win the game with cards like Eternal Witness and Temur Sabertooth. You can use it to blow up every permanent on every opponent's board. Then just recast like Tail Swipe and just kill every permanent on every opponent's board. Really strong, would recommend. Court of Calling. This is an instant speed tutor a creature into play. These effects are very strong. That's why we run Eldritch Evolution. It's why we run Natural Order. It's why we run Finale. It's why we run Green Sun. Just being able to put a creature into play is awesome, but at instant speed, it's one of the best cards in green that can do this effect. So it's a staple. It kind of fits in no matter what. Harrow. Harrow is crop rotation, but for 3 mana. Again, it's our Pyretic Ritual. It's a house. If we could have more of these, we would. It finds 2 lands, so you trigger Nissa twice, so you get to find an L4 Elemental. But also, the lands come in untapped, so you make 4 mana total with the 2 lands and the triggers. It's a ritual. It's incredible. Ooh, 1 sec. I forgot to link my stream. Give me 1 second. Go figure. Let me do that real quick. Give me 1 second. I got people talking to me now. It's early in the morning. I don't expect people to be awake at this time. Let's see. Okay. And alright, sweet. I think we're good to continue. Alright, and right now I'm just going over every card in the entire deck list and like my justification for those cards. So if you're joining now, you haven't really missed anything yet. Again, so Harrow is Pyretic Ritual, very good card. It also just makes it so we have more lands, which if someone tries to remove Nissa, we can recast her because we have so many lands. Force of Vigor. This card is just free and it destroys 2 disruption pieces. Cards like Rhystic Study, Esper Sentinel, even Mana Crypt at times. It's a total house. I love it in every green deck I can have it in, so it just always fits. Shared Summons, again, instant speed, creature searching. Doesn't go to the battlefield, but we don't really need that at times, especially if we're looking for cards to protect our combo. Cards like Destiny Spinner, or if we're looking for Sylvan Safekeeper. It's just like a good way to make sure that we can combo off when we want to, and nobody can stop us. So the more tutors we have, the better. I'm always a big fan. Graph Cage is going to get cut, so I'm just not going to go over that one. I'm just going to remove it now. I'm also going to just remove all the stack pieces for now, because I'm not entirely sold on any of them. I might add them back in later. Alright, so Chrome Box, it's 0 mana, 1 mana. Make 1 mana. We love those effects. If we could run more, we would. There's not really much else to that. Jeweled Lotus, it casts a Nissa for free. Like, this is the card that like shines the most when you play this deck. You play it turn one, you play Nissa, you play a fetch land, you're in business. It doesn't get better than that. So couldn't talk enough praise about this one. Lotus Petal, free colored mana. We need colored mana, and it being free is just it sets our early turns up to be extremely more like far more powerful than you would normally get to see just because of that extra one mana. So definitely big on the card. I would recommend anyone try it out. Mana Crypt, it's like a Jewel Lotus but colorless. It's great, and this only costs 1 green and 2 colorless, so that's like 2/3 of the cost. That's incredible. Mox Diamond, we run way too many lands, so being able to pitch them is awesome. And with cards like Crucible of Worlds, we can just replay the lands that we discard. Like, there's no downside. It's incredible. Manifold, it is like a Mana Crypt, but one time. Not bad. Soul Ring, it's Mana Crypt. Lightning Greaves, this gives us protection for our commander, but also can be used outside of the commander combo to make infinite mana with Quirion or Ashaya. It can also just be used in different pieces, so cards like Soccer or Tribe Scout can go infinite with Lightning Greaves. Big fan of the card, would recommend. Crucible of Worlds, it's incredible. If you have a fetch land in your graveyard and being able to replay it, you're just in a great spot. I couldn't recommend this card enough. Once we get to the testing part of the stream, you'll really get to see how crazy this card is, but I couldn't talk enough praise. Carpet of Flowers, I'm personally big on. I know a lot of people aren't. Just a ritual effect in green is always good, and the fact that we can run so many is kind of incredible. Sometimes it doesn't make any mana because you don't have any blue players in the pod. If you can, I would recommend just mulliganing those cards away. Like, if you have Carpet of Flowers in your hand and you're against a blue pod, probably mulligan. If it doesn't matter and, like, you can just win without playing it, then just do that, like, obviously. But, yeah, like, being a dead card sucks. I think that the benefit it gives us against blue, which, I mean, playing against blue is always difficult, is enough to make it worthwhile. Just because of the prevalence of blue in CEDH, but also the fact that there are so many upsides if you are against a deck that's got a lot of disruption. Exploration. This card is incredible. If we had more of these effects, I would play them. Most of them are on creatures, and they cost too much mana, and they're elves or elementals, and it's just a little bit more difficult to fit into the deck. But this one, because it's 1 green, makes it just a total powerhouse. Paired with cards like Crucible of Worlds, it goes nuts. Utopia Sprawl and Wild Growth. These are the same card, effectively. Just you enchant a land, that land taps for an extra mana. If you play it, let's say you have 2 lands out, you play it on the other land, so you tap 1 land for mana, the one that's untapped gets this on it, it pays for itself. So, it's free ramp. And then other times, it's just like Birds of Paradise. Just a dork, turn 1. That's great, that's what we want. Kenrith's Transformation. This is just a way to disrupt opponents from playing cards like Majesty of the Moon that might shut down our combo. It also just comes with a free draw. And then also, like, shutting down some decks entirely is really awesome. If you ever play against Slicer, Urza, or, like, Crick, if you play this on their deck, they are really mad. So, just, play that on the commander, and then get the free draw, and then sometimes that just wins you the game. This is a card I'm not sold on yet, but I'm at least giving it the chance in testing. The landfall ability is really easy to trigger. Getting 3 counters on it is not hard at all, especially with fetch lands. And then it's basically just at instant speed, you can remove the counters on an opponent's turn, and then put 2 lands into play, trigger Nissa's ability twice, put a Shaya or Quirion into your hand, and then on your turn you do it again with, a fetch land, let's say. And then suddenly, you win the game. So, the logic lines up for me personally. I don't know if it's good, but I've done a little bit of testing, and so far it's been okay. And this is another card that I would say would be a house in a shell that involves more elves and elementals. My list personally does not run that, but I'll do more testing. Maybe I'll end up adding 4 or 5. I don't know. Survival of the Fittest. I don't know. It might get cut. I like it. I love the card. Wish it was less mana. Wish it was less expensive, but it does a lot. It's really really strong with cards like Eternal Witness. Just being able to, oh, I discarded my card, but I just put it back in my hand. Um, Again, I wish it was less expensive, and I don't know that we need that. Like Nissa being able to just find the two creatures we need in the entire deck on her own makes me consider cutting this. And that's how I feel about a lot of the tutors, but this one especially, just because it does require a lot more setup than the other ones. Sylvan Library, if you can play this turn one with Nissa, like let's say you get like a Jeweled Lotus, and then you cast Nissa, and then you play a fetch, and then you have 3 mana available and nothing to do with it. Sylvan Library. It says win the game in that setting. Otherwise, though, if you are at a point where you're at like turn 3 or 4, you've been stopped several times, and you're just ripping cards off the top hoping for anything, this gives you 2 extra cards a turn. That's really strong. I couldn't speak more highly of the card. Big fan. Anyone that's contesting that, I don't think you're going to play enough mono green. Ancient Tomb. It's a Soul Ring, but on a land. Big fan. Bamp Panorama. So this is one of the spicy cards that fit, and like you might ask yourself, wait, that says more than just green. Why can you add that to your deck? The commander rules say if it has the mana colors in the card, then it counts as that kind of color. This one doesn't. It just says forest, plains, or island. Like the words. It doesn't say the color. So this can fit into your deck. And when it enters the battlefield with Nissa, you get a free mana, which you can then use on this card to find a forest. So it pays for itself, it's a fetch land, but also sometimes it can tap for mana if you don't want to fetch that turn. And being able to use the fetch later on is really relevant, I think, especially if you were to build a shell that involves more elves, just so you can trigger her ability later on in the turn cycle. Beside You, this card is a total powerhouse, love it. Discard it and blow up an artifact, enchantment, or non-basic land. That effect alone is insane, because you can't really counter it. But also it can tap for mana if you ever need that. So, big fan, would recommend. Cavern of Souls, you just name Elf. Nissa can't be countered. Quarian Ranger can't be countered. And then, yeah, they can counter a Shia, but oh well. It is what it is. Demolition Field, this card is awesome. So, it can be used to blow up an opponent's land, like let's say their Gaia's Cradle. But it also fetches you a land. Which means when it enters, if you pay 1 extra mana, because it makes a mana when it comes in, you can immediately trigger the ability, or activate the ability, and then trigger Nissa again, and get your basic land, because you also get to search. I also want to note the land comes in untapped, so it pays for itself. That's incredible. Like, alone, it entering, and then the next land entering pays for itself. But it also gives you an untapped land, so that's 3 mana, and all you have to do is spend 2, and then obviously the one that you would tap for Demolition Field. So, Net Zero and Trigger Nissa, those effects are loved. Dryad Arbor, this card is way stronger than it looks on the face. If you end up fetching for a forest, so let's see, I'm trying to remember which cards. We have a few cards that say search for a forest card. Those ones work really well with, right here. So Sky Shroud's Claim, 3 visits. You can find Dryad Arbor if you don't have anything to do with the mana after you cast these cards, just as a way to get a creature on play that you can then use with cards like Gaia's Cradle, or with cards like, let's see, Court of Calling, but it also makes mana, so bad example. Natural Order, Eldritch Evolution, and I think there's one more. With a Shia. Not really, but yeah, the point is, it's a mana dork. We don't have any of those, and the fact that we can find it off of fetches, and then other cards like those, are really strong. And being able to play Greenstone Zenith, right here, on 1 mana, to get Dryad Arbor, is just incredible. I couldn't speak more praise about that specifically, and it's basically just playing a Llanowar Elf, which, love it. Love Llanowar Elf. Alright, let's let's see. I go back to edge. There we go. Forests. I have 11. I don't know that this is the right number. I don't know that it's the wrong number. Still trying to figure that out. This is a work in progress. Guy's Cradle. This card is a total powerhouse. I'm sure everyone knows about it, but yeah, adding mana for the amount of green that you, or adding green for each amount of creatures that you can control is bonkers. Cards like Sakura Tribe Scout actually offer a way to go infinite and not use Ashaya, Nissa, and Query Ranger. If you have Query Ranger, it helps, but like you can do it with Scrib Ranger too. So with Sakura Tribe Scout, Scrib Ranger, we'll say for this purpose, and then Temur Sabertooth. You can tap the Tribe Scout to put Gaia's Cradle into play. You tap Gaia's Cradle for, in this case it'd be 3, but we're probably gonna have to have more creatures. So we'll say like 5 mana. You tap Cradle for 5. Activate Scrib Ranger, returning Gaia's Cradle to your hand. I know it says return a forest, but we have a land called Yavimaya, which we'll get to. It makes all your other lands forests. So we return Gaia's Cradle with Scrib Ranger. We untap Sakura Tribe Scout with Scrib Ranger, right? Activate Sakura Tribe Scout, play the Gaia's Cradle, tap it for 5. Activate Temur Sabertooth to return Scrib Ranger to our hand. So, because this does say activate once each turn, but if you return it to your hand, you can do this multiple times in one turn. It allows you to repeat that effect. So you return it to your hand with Temur Sabertooth, cast it again, return the Gaia's Cradle, untapping the Sakura Tribe Scout, and you can just do this as much as you need, making infinite mana. Then with infinite mana, you have cards like Duskwatch Recruiter, but we'll get there. So, yeah, Gaia's Cradle is a total powerhouse. If you ever get the chance to play it, definitely do. Yeah, I couldn't speak more praise. Gemstone Caverns. Love this card. If you go second, you can put it into play before the game starts. And then it taps for 1 mana of any color. That doesn't matter as much, but it's Chrome Mox, but on a land and for free. I like it. Really cool. Homeward Path. This is really strong if you come up against a deck that runs cards like Gilded Drake. Gilded Drake is like the bane of our existence. It's exchange control of this creature and target creature. So being able to get our commander back is really, really strong. If we ever run into that effect and it does shut us down, this is like the thing that we need to tutor for. So, and it doesn't really cost much. When it enters, we get green mana from Nissa, so the colorless mana part doesn't really make an issue. Jun Panorama is just Bant Panorama. These are the same card, just for all intents and purposes. Fetch lands. I'll get there in a second. I gotta take a drink. Alright. So, fetch lands are unlike anything else. They are one of the strongest cards ever printed in Magic. I know that that's going to cause some chaos, whatever. They are, objectively. Paying 1 life in a lot of decks is really strong. Not in this one, but like just being able to pay life for your lands is awesome, and that's what a lot of decks want to do. Sacrificing things is another thing that a lot of decks want to do. In this case, it's also relevant. And then search for a forest. That's why we're running this, and then put it into the battlefield untapped. So it enters, we get a green from Nissa. We activate it, sacrifice it, get a forest. Get another green from Nissa, trigger her ability, and then that forest can tap for mana. So we play that, and we get 3 mana total available to us. On top of that, when paired with cards like Crucible of Worlds or Ramanop Excavator, we can replay these cards from our graveyard every turn, netting 3 mana from our lands. And with cards like Azusa, Lost but Seeking, playing 3 of these in 1 turn nets you 9 mana and triggers Nissa. On top of that, you can hold off on using the fetch lands until other players' turns if you've already triggered Nissa's ability this turn. So you can use it multiple times, because you can do it on other players' turns. Basically, these cards break this commander, and they are like the bread and butter of what we're here for. Opposition Agent does stop them, so being able to work around them is really important, and we'll get to some of the ways we can do that, other than the fight spells that we do run. Naya Panorama and Jun Panorama. These cards are all the same. Like I can't really say anything else. Naya, Vant, Jun, like these are all the same. They're very good. Prismatic Vista, it is Misty Rainforest. That's, yeah, great. Sunscorched Desert, this is an interesting one. So when it enters, you deal 1 damage to an opponent, and then it taps for mana. So this is a way to kill your opponents if they were to stop you from doing it with like Infectious Bite, or what was the other one that I was doing? Yeah. And so other than Infectious Bite, there's like other ways. Oh yeah. Finale of Devastation. At X equals 10 or more, you can kill your opponents with like hasty creatures. But like this is just one of the other ways you can do that. Using cards like Crop Rotation. Oops, there we go. Crop Rotation. We can sacrifice a land and then search our library for that card. And then with cards like Noxious Survival, when it's in our graveyard, we can put it on top of our deck. So it's technically in our library. Crop Rotation, put it into play, sacrifice it with Crop Rotation, and you just repeat these until you kill everyone. Really funny. And obviously this would need cards like Temur Sabertooth and Eternal Witness along with infinite mana, but yeah, that's how you do that loop. Next card, Urza's Saga. So I'm really torn up about this one. I think it belongs, but I'm not entirely sold on it. It's a strong card to say the least, and it does a lot for what we want to do. My main concern is it takes 2 turns later to be able to search for an artifact that costs 0/1, and we win the game before that happens. If we don't, then we're probably in a really bad spot. I could see it working out really well for that reason, and like the blowout potential is not that big of an issue. So I'm a fan of the card personally, and I'm always going to try and bat for it, but I wouldn't say that it's a staple and belongs in the deck 100%. Like it's in the potential list of cards. Verdant Catacombs, this is just Misty Rainforest. They're incredible. War Room, this is a way to draw your deck, or at least draw until you get like the combo pieces that you need. With Sakura Tribe Scout, I'm a fan of it personally. I don't know that it's good enough to always make the cut. We also don't run many untapped land cards, so that just might be the reason we don't run this card, and like it might just not be good enough. That's okay. It's more just in there as a, hey, I'm trying to figure out what lines we want to go for, and this seems like one possible line. Windswept Teeth, this is just Misty Rainforest. These are the same. These are all the same. All 3 of these. And finally, we have Yavimaya, Cradle of Growth. So this card is total house. I love it so much. Making all of our lands tap for green is just incredible. It works really well with some of the cards that I'm not running currently, but I'm considering putting in just because of the synergies. On top of that, Gaia's Cradle and Yavimaya are really strong together. If you can make Cradle a forest, you can return it to your hand using cards like Prairie Ranger or Scrub Ranger, like I said earlier. Being able to replay it after you activate it, it gives you so much mana. Like it's such a large amount that it's hard to really grasp. But very big fan. This is a staple in any green deck. I love it. It also gets around Opposition Agent, cards like that, because you can tap your fetch lands for green instead of having to use them to search. So, again, could not speak enough praise. Now, I've seen some other people brewing this deck, and they've included some interesting cards that I'm definitely going to look into before I start the testing of this. So, one of the cards that was notable was Urborg, and this is an interesting one because it says that every land is a swamp. This is a green deck. But, like, hear me out. Being able to tap our cards that normally could not tap for mana, such as Misty Rainforest, is relevant. Like, that's a good effect. On top of that, there are fetch lands that enter and sacrifice themselves, and you can tap them for mana if you play them in combination with Urborg or Yavi Maya before they sacrifice themselves, so you can get an extra mana for free. And the cost is a colorless land, basically, because we can make black mana, but we can't use it. So it's colorless mana for all intents and purposes. I like it. It's a fun little combo. I don't think you'd really see it very often, but the idea is just hilarious to me. So, at the very least, I think it's worth considering running. I'm not entirely sure where I'm going to end up at with lands, but it's a cute idea to say the least. Yeah, so this is the list that we have right now. I still have to add 3 cards, so I'm going to go ahead and compare some of the other lists that do exist and try and get an idea of potential alternatives. And I saw someone running Beast Whisperer. In the initial testing for this deck, I did have Beast Whisperer in my list. Being able to tutor for an additional elf, other than like the combo, is really relevant, and it being able to be used with the other cards in our deck to draw more is just, that's incredible. The only concern that I have is it might slow you down enough to make your deck not fast enough. I know that a lot of decks are racing, and if you're first and you get like the nut to start, but you have a Beast Whisperer because you're running a Beast Whisperer and you just lose because of that, like, it doesn't get worse than that. So I don't know if that's what I want to do. At the very least, I'm going to do a little bit more testing with it. Let's see. So, some of the other lists, I'm going to actually open this in Edge so I can showcase this one. This list was posted by one of the people in the Selvala CEDH Discord. And, yeah, they have a little bit different of an approach. Kogla is a card that I'm definitely going to add. Big fan. So I'm just going to add that now, and then I'll give my justification after. So Kogla says, when he enters the battlefield, fight target creature you don't control. Fight effects are very strong, especially when attached to creatures. Big fan. Being able to tutor it, but also replay it with cards like Tamer Sabertooth are always relevant. And we don't really have that effect on any other creature in our deck, so it's a natural include. But also, when it attacks, destroy target artifact or enchantment, that's relevant. Like, being able to blow up stacks pieces that are actively stopping our combo is just always welcome. And the card is a total house. I couldn't recommend it enough. Also worth noting, it does allow you to return Eternal Witness, which is a human, to your hand with its last ability. You can do this as much as you want, so you can keep playing Eternal Witness and keep getting your cards from your graveyard, like, let's see, Crop Rotation. You can get that back in your hand as many times as you want. It's relevant. It's not always, but, you know, it is. Big fan of that card. Manglehorn I considered. I played a little bit. I just felt like every time I played it, I would rather have any other card. I also have not played this deck against anyone. So, you know, in testing, it might look bad, but in actual gameplay, you find out it's a total powerhouse. So, I personally am not on it, but maybe there's a reason to be. I'm not sure yet. Defiler of Vigor is an interesting choice. I don't necessarily agree with it. I'm not sure that the counters will ever really matter unless we go into a hard stack shell, which, as of right now, I don't know that we need to. The speed is there, and you know, once we do testing, I think that will really be showcased. Haywire Might is an interesting choice. 2 mana, destroy non-creature artifact or enchantment. Not a bad effect. Not one that I think we need. I like Liberator a little bit better, just because, yes, it costs more. The backside is remarkable. I think we are on all the other same cards. Gilded Goose, it's Birds of Paradise, but 1 time. I don't think that's enough, so I didn't run it. If it was instant speed, like, or you could, like, do it the turn it came in, because it had haste or something, like, yeah, I'd be all over it, but no haste and 1-time use makes me not want to run it. Grain Sun Zenith, excellent card. I think these are all in my list. Oh, Kodama's Reach. Yeah, that's one that's not. So this, search for a land, put it into play tapped, and then put another land into your hand. Most of the time, I've found that I have enough lands in my hand, so I don't really need more. So the second part of this ability is kind of irrelevant, and the first part, putting a land into play tapped. Sure, you make a mana from Nissa. I don't know that it's enough we want to run. Being 2 mana, because it pays for itself with the 1, but the 2 mana cost, just, it hurts. It hurts really bad. So personally, I don't know that I would want to run it, especially because like cards like Ramanop Excavator exist. I'd rather just play the fetch lands than the basics. Nissa's Pilgrimage, it's a similar story to Kodama's Reach. They're the same. Let's see. Natural State. I run Nature's Claim. It's similar. I don't think I need to run that many of these effects, so I don't. But it's not a bad call. Let's see. This card is a total powerhouse. Ritual effect. I love it. This one, I'm not sold on, but I'm not against. So the instant speed is really nice. Being able to sacrifice a land, search for 2, put it into play tapped. The tapped part sucks, because it's not a ritual. It effectively costs 1 mana. Being able to trigger Nissa on another player's turn, though, is incredible. And if we had more effects like this, I think it would be worthwhile to run more elves. I don't know that it's bad. I think that it's probably good, but in my specific list, because I don't run any other combo pieces that I can find with Nissa, I don't think that it's necessarily one of the best cards that we could be running. So, personally, I don't think I'm going to add it, but maybe later in testing I will. Force of Vigor, I've already gone over this, yeah, these cards. Jeweled Amulet, this is an interesting one. So, it's 0 mana, and you pay 1 and put a counter on it. Then later on, you can get that mana back. So it's like a managed mana storage card. I don't like it. I think that most of the time I just want that mana turn 1. So like, I feel like I'm wasting the mana. I'm not a fan, but everyone can have their own thoughts and opinions on that. That's just my personal belief. Let's see. Lightning Greaves and Crucible Worlds, we went over those. Covered Flowers. Concordant Crossroads, this is a good one. So, giving your creatures haste is excellent. But I don't think we need to. My specific list, which I'll go back to, focuses on using Ashaya and Quarian Ranger. And when combined with Nissa, it's already infinite mana. So, like, the haste is irrelevant. It doesn't help our game plan. And, like, yeah, you could argue, oh, well, what if you don't have Nissa? It's like, okay, there's, like, a lot of other ways that we can do similar effects, and like Lotus Cobra is one of them. Just like these 3 make infinite mana on their own. I don't think there's any use case for haste in this deck. That like, I'm running Lightning Greaves for the protection. Sometimes haste is relevant, and like, yeah, it helps, but like, not that often. The fact that it gives haste to all creatures, including opponents, it makes it so I feel like we're not going to be able to utilize the haste as well as a lot of other decks. So basically, we're just helping other people, and we don't want to do that. Personally, I don't like it. Obviously, I could be wrong. Utopia Sprawl. Yeah, we already went over these. Sylvan Library, yep. Okay, sweet. Now on to the lands that I'm not running. So Broker's Hideout. This card is excellent. It enters. You get a green from Nissa. Kills itself. Find a basic land. Put it into play tapped. So you play it. You get 2 mana. And then the tapped land. And you get to trigger Nissa's ability. Excellent card. It doesn't tap for mana, which really hurts my soul, but it might be good enough. I'm not necessarily against it, and like, this might just be a case of like, okay, yeah, clearly I'm not running enough lands, and like I need to include all the ones that do this, especially if you pair them with Yavi Maya or Urborg. Being able to play it, tap it for mana, then it kills itself, so you have a mana floating, and then the mana floating from Nissa. You get a land, it comes in tapped, you get another mana. It's on par with a fetch land, which is kind of awesome. So I think that these are definitely worth including, and I'll probably just do that. Broker's Hideout, Cabaret Courtyard. Cabaret. Oops. Yeah, that's how you spell it. And there's one more. Oh, is there not one more? Okay. Yeah, there's only 2. Yeah, then that's definitely worth running. I don't know what I was thinking. I'm going to... Let's see. I'm going to cut War Room. I'm not entirely sold on that card, and like the fact that it doesn't really go infinite with our combo makes me just not love it. Let's see. I feel like I'm on the higher end of lands, and I want to cut down, so I think I'm gonna do that. It's hard to say. Maybe I'm not. Maybe that's enough. All right, yeah, that's good enough. I don't like this card personally. Tapping for mana is like okay, and then the ability to spend 4, you get 6 to cast a creature. Like I don't know, it doesn't really do much for me. It doesn't really get me going. So I'm personally off this card, but you know who knows? Maybe I'm wrong. Cabinet of Souls, yeah. Command Beacon. I need this one definitely, and I'll explain why in a second. The question is, what do I want to cut for that? I could cut Homeward Path. They are not on Homeward Path. Interesting. I guess I could remove Homeward Path. I'll keep it in the considering pile for now, I think. So Command Beacon is it taps for colorless, or you can sacrifice it to put your commander into your hand from the command zone. If there's an effect like Drannith Magistrate out, which says players can't cast cards from anywhere other than their hands, that means that you can't cast your commander. So Command Beacon, putting it into your hand, gets around that. Really strong, and because we have so many ways to tutor for lands, I think that it's definitely worth a spot in this list. Evolving Wilds is one that I'm not entirely sold on. I tried it, and I did a little bit of testing. If you play it, you get 2 mana, which, like, 2 mana is more than, like, Naya Panorama, which only nets 1. But it doesn't tap for mana, so you don't have a choice but to fetch with it. That concerns me, but paired with cards like Urborg, it might be better. Again, I'm not certain yet. Let's see. All the rest, I think I'm already on. Emergence Zone is the other one. Emergence Zone, again, I'm not entirely sold on. I don't know that it's wrong. I just don't know that it fits entirely. Instant speed is cool, and, like, on a land, it's nice, but, like, I don't know how relevant it is. And it might just be like, oh, no, it's an obvious include, and you need to put it in. I haven't done much testing with it, if I'm being honest. So I don't know yet. I don't know that I want to test with it. I'm sure that some other person will get better results with it, and then I'll just put it in after. But for me personally, I don't really see the need for it, so I'm off it for now. Let's see, and then I'm just missing 1 card. So I think I'm interested in Abundant Harvest, and I'm also interested in Ancient Stirring. And I'll explain why, and then I'm going to make a cut. So, I don't like Sylvan Tutor very much. I think that we already just tutor for what we want. So I'm going to cut it. It might come back in later. Again, if you have more elves and elementals, that effect is incredible, and that's what we want. But this list does not do that, so cut it. Ancient Stirrings. This says 1 green for sorcery. Look at the top 5, reveal a colorless card, put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. Any of these artifacts count as colorless, along with any of these lands. Lands are colorless cards, people. I think Dryad Arbor is the exception. That's awesome. Like, just finding the land that we need is incredible, especially if it's a fetch land. Abundant Harvest is a similar story. You can choose land or non-land, depending on what we need, and then reveal until we get that card, and then put it into our hand. It's like a draw, but it's a selective draw. I like it, and we have a lot of times with this list where you have a free mana that you just don't have a use for. I think it fits. I'm not going to pretend that it's... Yeah, I could consider putting in Selvala. I've also considered putting in Beast Whisperer, but Selvala specifically, giving other people draw, hurts. And the fact that it's not going to make mana for us, like large sums of mana, in most scenarios, is enough to put me off of it. So At some point I might put it in. I've also considered Yisan for similar reasons, but the testing that I did with other elves, every time I was like, damn, I wish this was a Shia or Aquarian Ranger. Like, dang. Obviously, I haven't played against any players with this deck yet, so that might change. I don't know. But as of right now, no, I'm gonna do testing with the current list, and then we'll go back to the drawing board after. So let me export this list. I like to use Cockatrice, so export, copy for Magic Online, and then I'm gonna put this one on top. This is my Cockatrice deck list, and I'm going to load from clipboard. If you haven't used this program, I strongly encourage everyone to try it. It's incredible for testing.